reason for doing that is so you have a 360 view of your business. You're not just doing the SWOT analysis from a point of view of how you see yourselves. You're also doing it from the point of view of how other people, other businesses see you. And that will give you a more accurate viewpoint. I'm Mike Harris and I help businesses to successfully grow their profit and turnover. In the last year alone, I have helped over 20 companies at least double in size. And I work with a mixture of firms for small, medium and large businesses, including startups and multinationals. Here on the Leaders and Strategy podcast, I like to give away free of charge advice that would normally cost you a fortune, and that's what we're going to do today. In just 20 minutes, free of charge, I'm going to explain the most important tool for scaling your business, the SWOT analysis. So now coming back to today's subject, mastering SWOT analysis. And as I always say, everything we're looking at is through the lens of strategy. I know for some of you this is not new. You'll know about SWOT analysis, you may well have done them before, and therefore this will act as a refresher. But maybe for some of you, this is the first time and you haven't done a SWOT analysis before, and therefore this will act as an introduction. And just remember, we're talking here about business strategy and leadership. So let's start with what is a SWOT analysis. Now, I'm sure you've all heard of them, and as I say, some of you have probably been involved in them. But what exactly is a SWOT? Well, as I said earlier, it stands for strengths, weaknesses, threats and opportunities. And it's an established technique for reviewing your organisation or your project, your department, your business, etc. to help you plan for the future. It's a tool that analyses what you do best and the issues that you face in order to be able to devise a successful strategy for the future. It's also a framework that can evaluate your competitive position to help you arrive at a competitive advantage. So just to break that down a little bit more, your strengths are what your organisation are good at. In many ways, it's what separates you from your competition. Your weaknesses, on the other hand, is what your organisation is rubbish at. It's areas where you need to either improve or address in order for the business to move forward. The opportunities are the factors that could benefit the organisation, and the threats are the factors that could potentially harm your organisation. So recently I carried out a SWOT analysis with a customer in their offices in London, and they've been very kind and given me permission to use that to be able to demonstrate how to put together a SWOT analysis. So what I'm now going to do is demonstrate how to carry out a SWOT analysis using the information from that workshop. Now, obviously, I've changed it a bit just to protect the innocent. So here we are with my trusted whiteboard. And what I'm going to do now is take you through a SWOT analysis the same way as I do when I'm doing business planning workshops with my clients. So a SWOT analysis portrayed in a 4-box grid. And each segment is dedicated to each element of the SWOT analysis. In other words, you have the strengths and opportunities, and I'm going to do those in blue. I have to apologise, my handwriting is not very good. And we have the weaknesses and threats, which we're going to do in red. So, as I say, each segment, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. And the strengths and weaknesses are going to look at the internal factors that affect the business, whereas the opportunities and threats, they look at the external factors that are affecting the business. And that will become more clear as we get into it. And then the other thing that's worth pointing out is if you look at the left-hand side, the strengths and the opportunities, those are the more positive, favourable aspects of the SWOT analysis, whereas over here on the right-hand side, the weaknesses and threats, these are the more concerning and negative elements of the SWOT analysis. So I would suggest when you do this, you do it in a workshop as well. You do it with your team, as many people as you can, maybe even an extended team. And what I mean by that is people who maybe work outside of your department or even outside of your company. So you might bring in your supply chain, you might bring in customers, If you're brave, you might even bring in competition. And the reason for doing that is so you have a 360 view of your business. You're not just doing the SWOT analysis from a point of view of how you see yourselves. You're also doing it from the point of view of how other people, other businesses see you. And that will give you a more accurate viewpoint. And remember, when you do this, be honest. When you're talking about the SWOT analysis, you're talking about the things that are real, not the things you would like it to be. So don't talk about the things you would like to be strengths. Talk about the things that are actually strengths, as an example. And then the other thing that's key is make sure you have roughly an equal amount in each grid. So don't have 10 here and only 2 over there. So those who are listening rather than watching, that's 10 in the strengths and only 5 or so in the weaknesses, or vice versa. Make sure that you have an equal amount of both. So we'll get into it now. And if we start with the strengths, and I'm going to do this in blue, and we're not just going to do the strengths, then the weaknesses, then the opportunities and the threats. You'll see we're going to do themes, and quite often the same theme will appear in each of the boxes. And the reason it appears in each of the boxes is quite often the strength and the weakness can be the flip side of the same coin. There is an aspect of something within the business which is a strength, but a similar thing can also be a weakness. And again, this will become apparent in a minute. And the other thing, as I mentioned earlier, this is a real SWOT analysis. I did this with a customer a few weeks ago. So this isn't a hypothetical example, this is a real example. So let's start with strengths. So the first strength they identified is their existing client base. And the reason for that was they have a very strong client base who's been very loyal to them. They get lots of repeat business, 4 or 5 key accounts that they get a lot of work from. But equally, their first weakness was also related to the client base. And their first weakness was the fact they've got a narrow client base. In other words, they only have 5 customers. So if they were to lose 1 or 2 of those, that would be absolutely catastrophic to the business. So they saw strength, loyal customer base, weakness, narrow customer base. And then equally linked to that, under opportunities, they saw the opportunity of new customers. There's lots of customers in their sector that they do no work with. So the opportunity, which hopefully will also deal with the potential weakness, the opportunity to go and work with new customers. But they also see customers as a potential threat. So for instance, the fact that they've got narrow base of customers, if 1 or 2 of those suddenly decided to exit their market, whether that's the geographical region that they work within or the market sector, then that would be a threat. Equally, in today's economic climate, the insolvency of one of their current clients would be a major threat to them as well. So you can see there, sorry, I'll just write those out. Clients exiting the market and insolvencies. So you can see there that one subject, in this case clients, can actually sit within each of the 4 grids of the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities and the threats. So that was the first item they looked at. So the next strength they looked at was sector expertise. And what they meant by that is that effectively they only really work in one sector, and at a stretch 2, but very little work in the second one. So they know a lot about that sector, they know it inside out and back to front. But the weakness with that is they're too niche. So potentially, if that sector goes into a recession and the work starts to dry up, they've got all of their eggs in one basket. So the opportunity that came with this was new sectors. ideally sectors that are similar to the one they're currently in. So they've got the transferable skills and they can enter the new sectors easily. And identifying those new sectors are obviously going to be very important. But potentially, sectors is also a threat. Because just as it's a strength for them, the sector they're in, they've got the expertise, it's a strong sector, that also makes it attractive to new entrants to the sector. So just as they're going to be under opportunities looking at other sectors to move into, potentially there's going to be companies out there that don't work in their sector that is going to be attracted to the one that they work within and will be moving into that and will be trying to get market share. So the threat to them would be those companies looking to come into their market sector. So the next strength is strong relationships. What they were saying by that was that the client base they have, the relationship's very strong, as you would expect if they're dealing with 5 clients, but the relationship with their supply chain, their suppliers, subcontractors is very strong. So is their relationship with their competition. So strong relationships. But the weakness to that, which is linked, is even though they've got those strong relationships, they don't have the time to leverage them. So in other words, they don't have the time to do business development and use those relationships to get them more orders. And the reason for that is they're spending so much time on the delivery side of the business, they're not leveraging those strengths. Now, an opportunity they saw with those strong relationships is how do they form alliances with those companies to grow their business? So maybe looking at new sectors, could they actually form alliance with the relationships they've got, maybe customers or supply chain, and move into those sectors? Can they use the supply chain knowledge as an example, who may work for them and be in those other sectors already, and they may be able to capitalize on that? And then the threat that's linked to that is other relationships. And what they meant by that is they may have strong relationships, but so do their competition. Or new competition are coming in, are going to try to build new relationships, strong relationships with their customers, and that might edge them out of the way. So even though the relationship is strong, they mustn't become complacent. They've got to remain focused on it. So the next strength they had was clear branding. They felt their brand was very strong. The logo was recognisable. They were known in the sector they work within. Then people know them for what they do. They're known for what they're good at. Got a reputation built on the quality of the service and the product they provide. So they felt they have very strong branding. But equally, they felt their website needed updating. And the other weakness was they didn't, or they don't, use social media. Apologies, my handwriting could be better. There's a reason for this, and that's because when I finish the workshops, my customers cannot read my handwriting. So they have to employ me to actually scribe this, type it up and send it to them. So it's all part of a cunning plan to be able to earn a bit more fee. And if you believe that, you'll believe anything. Right. There's also, though, opportunities that are linked to this. So if they don't currently use social media, an opportunity is using social media. Quite simple, really. And you can start to see how these things don't operate in isolation. Within the grid, these things all work together. And the biggest threat for them, and they're seeing it already, is being left behind. And again, this is in relationship to social media. Their competition are using it and using it well. And as a result of that, they're losing out on orders from clients. So the next strength they looked at was the fact that they've got a lot of long-term staff. People have been with the company a long time, are dedicated to the firm, know them inside out, the customers know them, trust them, and it's a big part of the culture. So that was a key strength. But a weakness that's linked to that is that they're struggling to attract new employees. So even though it's good that they've got a lot of long-term staff, as they grow the business, they need to bring in new employees. And if they struggle to do that, which they are, then that's going to impact on their growth. But an opportunity that comes from that is the new staff. Because as the new staff come in, they're going to bring in fresh ideas, new ways of doing things. They're going to have relationships, maybe bring clients with them, might be able to help them get into the new sectors that they want to get into. So they definitely see the opportunity that comes from bringing in new staff. And then the threat that is aligned to this is that they're worried about losing their staff. And the reason for that is if they've got competition that are also growing, particularly competition that are coming into their sector, then they're going to look at their staff who are well known to clients, who have got a good grip on the market, and try to entice them away and get them into their business. So a risk to them, or a threat rather to them, is potentially losing their staff. So that's the first 5 of each of them. And you can see in each case there's a link between the strength, the weakness, the opportunities and the threats. But that's not always the case. Sometimes they can be standalone. Items that may be just a strength or just weaknesses, etc. So there you have it. Hopefully that all made sense. And so in summary, here's a recap on SWOT analysis. A SWOT analysis is a strategic planning technique. It identifies the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats that impact on the business. It looks at internal forces through the strengths and weaknesses and external forces through opportunities and threats. It works best in a workshop environment. Hopefully you could see earlier the idea of somebody standing up at a flip chart or a whiteboard and everybody else contributing is the best way to do this. And your strengths are what your organisation is good at. Your weaknesses is what your organisation is rubbish at. Your opportunities are the factors that can benefit your organisation, and your threats are the factors that could potentially harm your organisation. So by means of follow-up, I'd love to hear your comments and questions on SWOT analysis. What did you think of the format for today? It was a bit different, me using the whiteboard. Did that work? Were you able to read my handwriting? Would you like me to do more like that? Or maybe just go back to the old format of us doing it like this? Did it work as a podcast where it's audio and you couldn't see the actual flip chart? I'd be really interested to hear what you've got to say. As always, you can message me on LinkedIn, or you can leave comments below if this is on YouTube, or you can email me directly at the email address. And don't forget to like, subscribe, click on that bell icon if you're on YouTube. These all help the algorithm, which I'm learning a lot about at the moment. And also it helps you because it notifies you when there's more insights into leadership and strategy. It'd also be great if you could share this episode with other colleagues which may benefit in developing their leadership skills. And a quick reminder of where you can find us. You can watch us on the Leaders and Strategy YouTube channel, listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Podbean, Podchaser, and we upload every episode onto our website and also links onto LinkedIn. So you might also be interested to know we've just launched a new YouTube channel that focus purely on the short, so you can get soundbite information on leadership and strategy. And that YouTube channel is called How to Grow Your Business. So hopefully you've enjoyed it today, and you come back and join me for the next episode, which either will be an interview with a special guest or will be another masterclass episode like today's. I'll see you then. Thanks.